This is Sarah Malanowski with Empowered to Live Free, and we are working through a series right now about really utilizing what we have. Stop giving it God excuses on why I can't do something and just start being available and surrendered to what He wants us to do, knowing that what we have is enough, that God will use what's in our hands. And one person in the Bible who used what was in his hands was David. He faced a giant. In fact, the whole Israelite army is looking at this giant with the weapons on their back, and they are trained men of war looking at a giant going, I can't do it. I can't, no way. I'm not going out to face Goliath. That man is huge. And so on a daily basis, he taunted them. He reminded them that he was bigger than them. But when David shows up to the battlefield, when he shows up to provide provisions to his brothers, they are getting food and some substance for the battle. David overhears the giant, and something stirs within him. He doesn't question if he has the ability because he knows who God is. He knows the character of God. He knows that it's God's job to battle the giant. It's his job just to show up to the battlefield. So he's like, who's this giant that is defying our God? I'm going to go and take care of business. He's going to set the atmosphere for a battle to be won, for victory to take place. So David has this moment with King Saul where King Saul is dressing him in King Saul's armor. And of course, King Saul's armor is too much for David. It says, then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. I cannot go in these, he said to Saul, because I am not used to them. Some of you aren't getting into the battle yet because you're wearing someone else's armor. You're trying to fit into what someone else's expectations are of you, and it's so cumbersome. It's weighing you down. You can't even show up to the battle because you're like, I'm so weighed down by the expectations. I'm so weighed down by the limitations. I'm so weighed down by what someone else thinks I'm supposed to be or how I'm supposed to fight the battle. And God's like, what you have is enough. I've trained your hands for battle. I've trained you to go and fight giants. You don't need a sword. You don't need a shield. You don't need all the armor. You just need some stones. That's what David had. That's what David said. I've got 5 smooth stones. He was ready for battle. And not just to face Goliath. He knew that Goliath had brothers. So he had extra stones just in case. Just in case, because he was a man who understood what the cost of battle was. He was a man who was going to show up prepared, available, and ready. And he knew that it wasn't what he had that counted, but who he served that counted. He was serving God with what was in his hands. So it says in verse 45, David goes out to the Philistine and he says, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me. David not only had stones, he had a mind that was so fixed on the things of God. He knew who God was. He knew the character of God. He had heard the stories passed down from generation to generation, and that strength inside of him was built for this very moment in time. He didn't need to stop and ask God, hey, will you show up for this battle? Hey, God, are you sure? Are you sure we're supposed to fight this Goliath? He knew if there's a Goliath, there's a God who can battle. There's a God who can have victory. And so his hope was in God Almighty. It was not in those stones. It wasn't in what his ability was. It was in the God who he served. The one who showed up when it was time to wrestle a bear, when it was time to kill a lion so that the sheep would be protected. You see, David had been practicing for this very moment in time. Some of you have been practicing for a long time, and you've been hiding, waiting in the background, thinking that somebody else can do the job, but God's waiting for you to show up. He's waiting for you to be the David who goes out to the land and kills the Goliath. And it's time. It's time. You've got what it takes to go kill him. There's this moment where David, he moves. So the Philistine is now cumbersome, like he's big. So he is a slow moving giant on that field. And David is eyes like flint on Jehovah, saying, I know who's going to show up for this battle. As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead and he fell face down on the ground. How incredible! It only took one stone. It just took a man who was available to sling that one stone. Are you available? Will you go out and fight a giant? Will you stop looking at what you have or what someone else is telling you have to face the battle? It's time to show up. It's time to show up to the battle lines, knowing who you serve, knowing who's before you, knowing who's in you, knowing what God has given you to do. It's your time to go face a giant. What giant will you slay today?